there is a blank % chance that Auston Matthews signs an extension this summer with the Leafs.
I would say pre-July 1, there's a 5% chance. Signing one this summer, a little bit longer, I would say I would give it a 25, maybe to 30% chance. I also think he wants to wait and see and see, who gets hired, what's things going to look like, what's the new messaging. Do they really want him? Does the GM look at Auston Matthews as the guy for the future? That's another important part. So, I think it's less than a 50% chance that he does a deal this summer, especially with Dubas moving on. I think if Dubas doesn't get fired, I think this gets done a lot quicker and is more of a guarantee.
So I'm going to go a bit higher. I'm going to say a 60% chance that Auston Matthews signs an extension with the Leafs this summer. You made a great point about the timing, and I think there's so much to figure out in terms of the next general manager, what's his plan, what's his vision, and more to the point, is he keeping the core four around? Auston Matthews, it's no secret, has had the best success of his career when he's been on the ice with Mitch Marner. So I'm going to say 60%. All right, question number 2, fill in the blank. Matthew Tkachuk is a top blank player in the league. Top 5, top 10, top 30. What's your number?
To me, he's a top 5 player in this league. I think this playoffs has really shown it. I think that he's been, climbing the rankings and sort of climbing the mountain. And when you look at the way he plays, he's just really good and elite in so many areas. It's not just the scoring, it's not just the passing, it's the physicality, it's the compassion in the way that he plays, the emotion in the way that he plays. You see him laying out to block shots. You see him leading by example. He just does everything to me. He really does. He might not be as smooth and as pretty as when Kucherov makes a play on the power play or, any of these other highly skilled forwards. But to me, he might be the most complete player at the forward position in the NHL, but definitely a top 5 player in the league. And I think he's going to win the Conn Smythe after his team wins the Stanley Cup this year.
So this was a great question from Tyler. And I really hem and haw on this because, let's say you're starting a franchise and you get to start your team from scratch and you go through a draft. Where would he fall on your list? So it's something like McDavid, Draisaitl, Makar, McKinnon. Is Tkachuk right there, or is there a goalie? So just full transparency, before the season started, I had Tkachuk as one of the 17 franchise players in the NHL. I had him at number 14. I think he's inside the top 10, but I'm all over the place. I love all those attributes that you mentioned, but I think he's top 10, not top 5. So I'd have to really go through the list and try and figure out if I was building a team. He's certainly right up there, though. And, I think it's always dangerous to have a conversation like this just because there is obviously inherent recency bias there. And then you can ask the question of, where was he in the playoffs last year for the Calgary Flames, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think there's any doubt that he is superstar status in the NHL. And it just makes the Florida...
But I have to push back on you a little bit, Frank, because I'm going to say we've never seen Leon Draisaitl or Connor McDavid in a Stanley Cup final. And granted, Connor McDavid lives on a planet of his own. To me, there's no conversation. It's Connor McDavid and the field. Okay. But I'd put him ahead of Draisaitl. I really would. Look how he's willing his team to the Stanley Cup. In every big moment, he makes whatever play necessary. Yes, there is recency bias there. But ultimately, you look at his points in the regular season and you look what he's doing in this postseason. We judge this sport on Stanley Cups. This guy is going to play for a Stanley Cup, something his father never did. Okay, and his father is one of the greatest American-born players of all time. So I'm all in on him. I just love watching him play. And, I'll argue with anyone that he's a top 5 player in the NHL.